I'm one of your co-hosts, Jocelyn Cruz. This is my co-host, Jason Ivy. We've been having so much fun with you guys, and I hope you guys are having fun too. We would love for you guys to each introduce yourself. We'll start with Doc. If you just say your first and last name, what you represent, and any other information you want to know, but we'll get into it. So we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Doc Mack. I'm the owner of Galloping Productions, which is currently in production of Dark Presence, and also I'm the owner of the Galloping Arcade, the largest arcade in the world, all out in Brookfield, Illinois. In 1994, so we've watched technology advance. We've had been in production of the game, and technology has just grown so quickly that it has forced us to change even platforms that we're working on. So it's one of those never-ending things. Like technology now, I think it has brought the games. They're much easier to make. Like the engines are already built. You look at classic games. Talk to developers and designers, and from the era when Jeff was making games, where every line of code had to be written from the ground up. And now with engines like Unity and Unreal, a lot of the foundational work has been done, which allows even smaller companies to kind of jump into it. Software packages and rendering packages, whereas artists like Jeff had to pixel by pixel draw every single item that you would see on the screen. It was so time consuming. Now, the software that's out there allows everybody, your game can be beautiful just by even just typing in what you want. Like there's assets, pre-made assets, and it's definitely evolved and gotten easier, but the scope and the scale of the games has changed so much as well. So you look at games that come out and they have many-year development times, and there's just thousands of people working on a game, whereas back in the day you would have a team of 3 people working on a game. And it's one of those things. It's just an evolution. The technology has gotten better, but it's pretty much the race to get your game out while the technology that everybody's currently using is still relevant.
I would just add, back when I was first doing these graphics, yes, there was great limitations on what we could do. We were forced to be creative. The expectations weren't quite as high, so it was easy maybe to look awesome if you had a slight improvement over what else was out there. And I think with the tools that are out there today, expectations are endless, what people can do. So that's a great thing. There's just, you're only held back by your imagination.
Stuff like visuals, story, like visuals, it's now your visuals can pretty much be whatever you want them to be. The bar is much lower to make a beautiful looking game. Gameplay-wise, that is something that brings you back, something that you know you can get better at. It's one of those things that's to me is the real hook. Having a good story, it's one of those things where it was so hard to convey in an arcade game back in the day. Like you had such a short period of time to get that player's attention. And it's different from player to player. It's great to sit down. I love games that have immersive stories, but for me, gameplay is always going to be key.
Well, I don't play too many new games, these massive games. I play a couple that are like Dungeons and Dragons sort of things. What keeps me playing that sort of game is advancement, achievement, and it keeps egging you on to continue to the next challenge. And I think that's probably what the same principle of a lot of the classic simpler games is achievement. The guys trying to set records, world records, that sort of thing. It's been there all along, and that aspect will probably never change again.
And I think the gaming world, it's kind of diversified and split up, where it used to just be like the game was being made and everybody was going to play it. And now everything has kind of become fragmented, where there's fighting games, there's first-person shooters, there's MMOs, and they're all very different in trying to cater their worlds to be very specific to those players. I think often, especially now, I think that the industry is really focusing, again, because of the massive budgets behind these games, they have to make something that sells and that resonates with players. So they reach out to the top players and allow the top players to kind of get involved, which to me, honestly, I would say is almost a mistake, because those players are like the 1%. They're playing it day in and day out like it's a job. And with that, it kind of loses the casualness to it and makes the point of entry much higher. And especially the fighting game community, the games are so over-designed and overdeveloped. The top players really enjoy them, but it's hard to get a new player in. So it's one of those things. I think the industry will continue to evolve, because they're trying to make the best games possible and have these super immersive worlds and getting it to where making a game sell well now. I think the industry has kind of become unfocused, whereas back in the 8-bit and 16-bit era, games were still kind of looked at differently. Now everybody buys a game, but the question becomes, how long are they playing it for? Whereas games like the original Mortal Kombat, people played it for years. Mortal Kombat 9 resonated for close to a decade. And same thing, Street Fighter 4, it was designed differently. And I think it's the design kind of goes to the players more than the original game designers and creators. To me, I think it is kind of changing the direction, and to me, I hope the designers just come up with, just go back to how it used to be, like making it so niche. Being more inclusive to casual players, I think, is a very good thing, because it's better to play a game designed at a mid-tier or high professional level and let it be played at the top level, as opposed to a pro player's vision of a game being played at a low level. It just is a much harder fit for the industry. Mental health in gaming is definitely it's a big topic. It was one of those things. It landed more so with the arcade side of things. When all the lockdowns happened, we had so many people reaching out because we were streaming, talking about how this was the arcade and the streams that we were doing were so good for their mental health. It's so difficult to kind of thread it and weave it into an actual game. But you can, through story. You can put people through situations that they're dealing with in the game. It doesn't fit with every game. And there's people that are going through things, they often do look to video games. We've seen it so often in the arcade. We'll see somebody dealing with some heavy personal issues, whether it's a loss in the family or breaking up or even alcoholism. So many different things people go to gaming to get them through. It is an escape, and you can help people with stuff story-wise, and that's one of the things. It's a very important role for game developers if they're going to approach it in a game, because it is so significant. If you are taking players through something that they're personally going through, a game's going to have such a strong connection to them. But in that, you're dealing you hold such a powerful tool. So it's something that you definitely have to be careful with. I think the developers, a lot of them are pretty secretive. Back in the old days, you didn't even know who worked on a game. It was very secretive. They didn't want people to steal their artists or their programmers. So there was very little discussion between the companies from what I've heard. It seems like the direction that everybody has kind of gone in, like back in the early days, the direction was just go make something cool that you think would, there's no benchmark to kind of live up to. So everybody was just kind of creating with a blank slate. And as each generation gets different technology and the interests change. In the arcade scene, you can almost see it's like 8-year blocks where players come and then they go out. And it's funny, you see where players are talking about how the industry died at certain points in time. And it's more so they just left. And true with a lot of designers, developers, companies, they make games for a bit and then they go on to something else. We saw companies like Konami that always had a staple in the arcade scene. And then they went to console, and then they went to mobile. And it's now so much more business push, and so much is still so secretive. So a lot of the people working on games, especially in the bigger companies, aren't allowed. They're all under NDA, so they're not really allowed to discuss stuff definitely publicly. Privately, if you're friends in the community and stuff, it's a different thing. But it's definitely been an evolution. Some of the people that are still creating games now, like they're probably the ones to tell you best.
So this year, our hero of the year, we're going to acknowledge Doc Mack.
You know, I've done a lot of shows, ran a lot of shows, set up a lot of shows. I know the tremendous amount of effort that it takes to put a show like this together, and it is such a phenomenal thing to be a part of it on the inaugural year, the first year of everything. And everybody, tremendous job on putting out a show that I think everybody really got a lot out of, really enjoyed, learned a lot of things, and I hope it is the first of many. So thank you for that. It's one of those, video games to me have been my whole life. I've started playing at the age of 5. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be in the industry making games. And once our production company opened up in '94, that was a dream come true. As things evolved in 2010, the arcade opened, and it really hit such a different level because we got to put games out in the arcade and see these games make people happy. And that really brought the next step of it, which was bringing the industry people into it. And so many of the legends and people who are heroes to me that have made all these great video games that I've enjoyed for my whole life, and I've seen so many other people enjoy and cherish it. Those games mean so much to them. And to be able to show those people still enjoying their games 40 years later, is such an immensely satisfying thing to see them happy from other people enjoying it. And I think this is a great continuation of it. You got people learning about game design and development and making contacts and communicating, and everybody's here just learning and all around video games. So what a tremendous thing. So thank you for what you put together here. And everybody brought so much to it. So thank you so much. And it's an honor to be the first hero here. Thank you. Thank you guys very much.